All right. Welcome, guys. We have a very special interview going on today on the Cognac Cupcakes and Conversations podcast. We have some members from the Black and Missing Incorporated Foundation. We have Derica and Natalie, and I don't even want to talk too much more. I want them to go ahead and introduce themselves. So Derica, we'll start with you as the CEO.
Okay, I am Derica Wilson, co-founder of Black and Missing Foundation, born and raised in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I moved up to the DC area in 1999. I graduated from the Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Academy. I became the first and only Black female police officer in the history of the City of Falls Church Agency.
Wow.
And I am married with two beautiful children. I'm actually married to Natalie's brother, and he's the biggest man on the face of this earth. And I say that all the time, but this is home for me, and this is what we love to do, just give back to our community. So it's definitely a pleasure to be on here.
All right.
And I am Natalie Wilson, co-founder of the Black and Missing Foundation. I'm originally from Trinidad, and I came to the U.S. at a very early age. Attended high school here in D.C., college at Howard University, and I've been living in the city ever since in PR, and have been doing that for many, many years. And I'm very passionate about utilizing media for the good, for the cause.
Nice. And Natalie, okay, anytime someone says they're West Indian, I have to say something, because my parents are West Indian too, from Grenada and Panama. So I just, we don't have to, we were kikiing before we started recording, but we've all gonna have to kiki after.
Yes. But, Grenada is very close to Trinidad.
Yes, it is right there. So, yes, I'll get into my ancestry later with you. But,
Okay.
Yes, today's episode is all about continuing our conversation about protecting our girls, our world, and our curls. And so, we first stumbled upon Black and Missing when we were watching Insecure. Our listeners know how much we love Insecure, and we thought that there was like a podcast afterwards for what was the girl's name again?
Looking for
Latoya. Yes. Looking for Latoya, and it was so fresh and different, and it was just such a great way to get people to start that conversation. And so we want to dig deeper and learn more about Black and Missing. So why and how did you start an organization focused on finding Black missing people?
Okay, so I'll start. The inspiration behind the Black and Missing Foundation is a young lady by the name of Tamika Houston, who went missing from Derica's hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we read how her aunt was in media relations, or is in media relations, and she really struggled to get any type of media coverage for her niece's disappearance. And a little while later, Natalie Holloway went missing. I'm sure you've all heard of her name. And she dominated the news. And we wanted to see, is there an issue in our community? Are people of color not disappearing? Are, white women disappearing more? And we did some research, and at the time, 30% of all persons missing were of color. And since 2008, that number has grown to 40%, and it continues to grow. So that's the inspiration behind it. The motivation behind it are all of the missing people and their families who rely on us to help find them. We're really their last resort. No one is helping. They're not getting the media coverage. They're not getting assistance from law enforcement, and they don't know what to do. So that's why Derica and I joined forces. I'm in media relations. She's in law enforcement. And those are the two critical professions needed to help us find us and to bring awareness to our missing.
Wow, that is crazy. Why is it that when our Black sisters and brothers go missing, it goes under the radar? Like, I'm trying to understand what is the connection of why we aren't spoken about? Like, why don't we get the same media coverage as our white counterparts? Like, is it because of our skin? Is it because that you feel like the people don't care about us, or do you feel like we as a village don't put enough behind us?
I think it's twofold. From a law enforcement perspective, oftentimes when families go to law enforcement and they report their loved one missing, when it's a child, they like to label them as a runaway. And runaways do not receive the Amber Alert. And then there's no sense of urgency in looking for them because they're broadcasted as, this child ran away, or they just simply not taking the police report. And when it comes to missing adults, men and women, they like to associate their disappearance with some sort of criminal element behind it. And that lessens the sensitivity of getting that case out. It really diminishes the fact that this is someone's, wife, someone's daughter, uncle, brother, father that's missing, because they're putting that negative information out there. So it really is twofold. And Natalie can talk about the media perspective behind it. But before she say anything, I do want to go back and say, when Natalie and I first started the organization 12 years ago, our community didn't realize that this was an issue, because when they turned their televisions on, they didn't see anyone that looked like us. So, we are boots on the ground, knocking on the doors, broadcasting the information about our community going missing. And it's all of our responsibility: law enforcement, the media, and the community.
Mm-hmm. And from a media perspective, we need more diversity in the newsroom. So we need people to tell the stories and to see the importance of our story, that our lives matter. Most of the newsrooms are run by white males, so they don't see our stories as being important. So we have to change that narrative. And like Derica mentioned, we all have a responsibility. It's not just the media, but law enforcement in our community. They need to step up and to bring awareness to these missing individuals and to help find them.
Yes. So I'm actually I want to delve deeper into that, because I don't know if you guys watch the show called The Chi this season, but it just became more and more prevalent in the media about how unimportant it is to the general public when a Black girl goes missing. So, but what we saw in that show, spoiler alert for anyone who did not watch, what we saw is the community come together to help find her and bring awareness about her even missing. And so I want to know, what is the importance of a village in finding our Black people that are missing?
Well, first I want to say thank you to the cast and the creator of The Chi. They partnered with us, especially Burgundy. I mean, she has been an advocate for us and the individuals that are missing. She is always sharing their profiles, and they even did a PSA for us. I think there were 8 cast members who used their time to say that they stand with the Black and Missing Foundation. But yes, it does take a village. All of us, we need to understand that these are missing mothers and fathers, their children, their grandparents, and we need to, to realize that this is an issue that affects our community, and it affects America as a whole. And we need to take these cases seriously, because there are also financial implications. If the mother isn't there, the father isn't there, who's taking care of the kids? And we hear so many times that the families are spending every dollar that they have to help find their missing loved ones. So it's a strain on the families, and we all have to do our part. We all have a role to play in this, because think about it, it could be you, it could be your family member, it could be your loved one, and you would want someone to step up and to help find them.
And it was great seeing how the community did come together in the show. I think awareness is key. And from the community standpoint, how they were all distributing flyers, passing out the flyers, posting signage everywhere, knocking on doors. It really showed that the community was invested, and that's what we asked for from our community as well. See something, say something. You know, one of the takeaways from the show, I hope people are very vigilant about who live in their neighborhoods, you know, just being aware and getting to know your neighbors. And even though the show didn't depict, you know, this individual as a sexual predator, we as an organization encourage people to check the sex offender registry regularly, you know, get to know who your neighbors are, you know, and if you see something, definitely say something. If something doesn't seem right, 9 times out of 10, it's not.
That's so important. Yeah.
That is definitely important. So what else can we do? Like, what else can we do as a, like, for example, I know we are trying to bring the awareness with you guys with, you know, advertising on our podcast. And of course, whenever we see posts, we could always repost, but what else as a community, like, can we do? Like, besides just being more aware, like, how can we put foot to the ground to see if we can actually locate and find our missing loved ones?
And I actually have a follow-up question to that. Not to pile it on, but what you said, I just don't want to forget it. When we see those ads on Instagram, or not ads, excuse me, when people post on Instagram that, you know, my little cousin is missing, a lot of people, I think the general consensus is to be like, oh, she probably just, well, like you guys said earlier, ran away or at her boyfriend's house or whatever. Like the psyche that even us as Black people may have, like, why am I gonna post this on my Instagram? Like Kella's talking about with the call to action, what more can we do other than taking that seriously and I guess figuring out why we don't take it as seriously?
So some low-hanging fruit things that we can do. One, as you mentioned, is to share the profiles of our missing, because all it takes is one person to come forward to either close that case or to bring that missing individual home. And we are a national organization, and we need boots on the ground when someone goes missing outside of the DMV. We need to have a list of volunteers that are vetted and that we can definitely rely on them to be our advocates in our absence so that they can help these families search for the missing loved ones. Again, you know, we talk about voting. This is an election year. We need to go out and vote and elect individuals or leaders that represent our causes. We know that this is an issue, that our missing aren't represented. We need to have someone in office that sees this as an issue and takes it seriously and add funding to the cause. So those are, you know, 3 really simple things that we can do right now to help bring awareness to this issue.
And then as parents and grandparents, from a proactive approach, we need to have those uncomfortable conversations with our children, with our loved ones. You know, parents, stop being your children's friend and be the parent. You know, a lot of kids are learning remotely now, so they're spending a great deal of time online. And these predators are luring these children online. So monitoring what your children are doing, you know, see what they're downloading, who they're communicating with. You know, those are some little small things that you can do in your home. And because the number one reason that or number one way a person can actually get in your home without coming through the front door is through that computer or that smart device. And so just knowing what your children are doing, because human trafficking is real. You know, this is happening right here on US soil, right in our own backyards. You know, oftentimes people think that this is happening abroad. You know, we just worked 2 cases last week that involved human trafficking. And so we need people to understand and have those uncomfortable conversations. And the last nugget that I would like for us to share, you know, as it relates to our missing and posting these flyers on social media, please stop putting your personal cell phone number on those flyers. We have had so many families to be scammed by putting their personal information out there. People are taking advantage and preying on these families.
So I have 2 questions for that. One, I'll comment for the last question, that thing that you mentioned. should they get like a 1-800 hotline? Should they just leave it to a professional organization such as yourself for them to be able to like have that form of contact, because you guys are more of an experts in that, that field, that lane?
So it's twofold. We actually put our 877 number on the flyers that we create. That way, if there's a tip that comes in, not only do we share it with the family, but we also share it with law enforcement so they can follow up appropriately. And when a police report has already been filed, you can use that police phone number, the dispatch number on that flyer, because if anyone has information, they should also be flooding that investigative agency so they can follow up on it as well. So those are two numbers that they can actually put on the flyer, our number as well as the investigating agency number.
And my other follow-up question was also, it's more of a statement. I recently just saw I think it was like a Facebook mini clip of someone, one of these influencers, who was talking about how we deal with our children. And I remember growing up, my mom would be like, oh, if a stranger is talking to you and they're like, oh, she's so pretty. And, your mom was like, say thank you, and like try to like really push the child to engage in these uncomfortable conversations. But we all know children have that like intuitiveness where they can kind of sense when something is off or something isn't right. So what is your, point of view of, making sure that we're not enticing our children to have conversations with strangers just for the sense of, being friendly?
That's a great question. As far as a response, I would say this, I can relate. I grew up in the South, and that's how I was raised. And I'm a parent now, and I'm also law enforcement. So I look at things differently. It's no different than your parents telling you to eat everything on your plate, but yet majority, there's a lot of people in the US that are obese, so, you start thinking about certain things. And as a parent now, I look at things a little bit differently. I used to teach the stranger danger. I would love for people to just be well aware. I don't see that a lot like I used to see back South, but that's not to say that it still doesn't happen. I think they're being very savvy about it. I think they're enticing them online per se nowadays. And when a child is online and they're communicating with someone that is hiding behind their keyboard, their computer screen, and they're 25 years old or 35 years old, and the kids are pouring out everything in their gut because their parents don't understand them, when they realize that person they've been communicating with is older, at that point, they don't care. They're like, well, this person understands me, because that person is saying exactly what they want to hear. And so that's why it starts in the home with those uncomfortable conversations, about what's really going on. Don't try to shelter your kids about reality, because when they walk out the front door, you don't know what these kids that they're hanging around have been exposed to.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And we live in a totally different times, and we have to teach our kids about boundaries, and we have to teach them about safe distancing. We talk about social distancing now, but safe distancing. If the child is not comfortable giving an aunt or an uncle a hug, or any family member or friend, back in the day, we used to force them to do that. No, as you said before, they have this intuition. And if they're not comfortable, we don't need to make them do anything, because that's how they start making decisions, We want them to force them to say, hey, you have to do this. No, you have a choice. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, don't do it. And as parents, we need to listen to our kids. So, the child comes back and tells you something that someone made them feel uncomfortable. We need to listen and address the issue.
Absolutely. I think that's our main issue in our Black and Brown community, is the lack of conversation, the lack of, like really schooling and the education of the worries. I think what happens is we get ashamed of those things and we try to sweep it under the rug, like, oh, this never happened. We just put on a brave face and you got to keep moving. You got to keep pushing. But this is what happens. And this is probably, I mean, you probably could speak a little bit more to it, you, especially as a police officer, and you seeing this media as far as with the sex trafficking, as to how people can fall prey to that. So we really appreciate you. We appreciate you for even just highlighting that and bringing that to, you know, to the area, so that everyone can kind of understand what's going on and how important it is for you as a village and for you as a parent to actually have these uncomfortable conversations in general. And I have another question that I wanted to find out from you. Would you say that it's more so women that are being missing, or is it more men?
What I would say is, when Natalie and I initially started the organization 12 years ago, there were more missing Black men than there were Black women in the US. It's kind of evened out. I mean, the numbers are still alarming. As she stated earlier, our numbers when we started out was 30% of missing persons were persons of color. That number has increased. But, you know, it's that even playing field when it comes to the men and women.
Wow.
Also consider our boys too. When we talk about sex trafficking, you think about our young girls. Our boys are being sex trafficked too. So, you know, it's just a sad statistic all around that our community is being, you know, taken advantage of as it is. So we need to do a better job in educating and protecting these young men and these women. You know, we look at the LGBTQ community, they're being affected. Disproportionately, we need to take a look at our homeless children, like Relisha Rudd. She's still missing. I'm sure you all, you know, remember her name. And our kids in foster care, you know, they're looked at as throwaway kids, but they're somebody, and we need to say their names, and no one is really protecting them. And they are disappearing at an alarming rate. So holistically, we have a lot of issues within our community that we need to address.
And now that school has started back, a lot of these kids, the seniors, are off to college in unfamiliar areas. And we've seen an increase of some of these college students going missing. You know, people prey on them. And what I've noticed recently, a trend recently within the past few weeks, we've had quite a few missing young men that have met someone online and they went missing as a result. So I don't want people to think that this is just happening to girls, as Natalie stated. They are preying on our boys. They are, you know, preying on our men. And we have to come together as a community. This is a pandemic in itself. So we are dealing with so many crises right now in our community, with COVID, with missing persons of color, and then with the racial inequality.
Yes, that just reminds me of Ed Buck, who was doing all that to the Black men. You know, I thank y'all so much for calling that out with the LGBTQ community, because we don't think about that community and how they're, you know, we could even go back into talking about women, the trans women community. And how much they are disproportionately affected by violence, and of course going missing is part of that as well too. But again, I echo what Kel said. Thank you so much for creating this and bringing attention to the fact, because y'all are so right. As soon as I heard Natalie Holloway, I knew what you were talking about, but I didn't unfortunately know the other young woman's name. And that's a problem. And you know, they're looking for, I can't even remember the little girl's name. Do you remember?
Kaylee Anthony.
Say that again.
Kaylee Anthony.
No, the young little white girl that went missing, and she was a pageant girl.
In Denver.
Zsa Zsa Gabor or something.
No.
I remember her name. Yeah, she was
JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet Ramsey. Yeah. You know, yes, I couldn't remember her name, but y'all hear that name and you know it, and I think that is what's important here. You know, it's sad that these cases even have to happen or have to be talked about, but like, we need to know our Black names the same way that we know these other names, our Black and brown names.
Have you ever heard of Akia Eggleston?
No.
Have you ever heard of Lacey Peterson?
Yes.
No. You have?
I have.
So Lacey Peterson went missing. She was pregnant. Akia Eggleston, she went missing May of 2017 from Baltimore, Maryland, and she was pregnant, and she's still missing. So, you know, there's so many cases out there. Chandra Levy, you know, Elizabeth Smart, you know, you all recognize those names. But if we start running down a list of our Black and brown, and that's why we want to, this is the call to action. What are their names? As Natalie said, what are their names? Say their names. And we have to keep putting that information out there to the public, because once we take it down, you know, people think that they've been found, and they haven't. So we have to continue, you know, and as Natalie stated, it's an American issue. I mean, missing persons is not a Black issue. It's not a white issue. It's all of our issue. And we all have a role to play. We can't always wait on the 5 and 10 o'clock news cycle. And so social media has been, you know, a blessing and a curse. You know, it's been a blessing for us to get this information out in real time, but it's a curse when the predators are utilizing it for the wrong.
Yeah. So can you tell our listeners, you know, if they have anyone, that loved one that is missing, where they can find out, any resources that you can provide to them, and also give out your website for other people to be able to, you know, come in and take that action. If they want to reach out to you to be those boots on the ground, like you said, in other states and areas of the world, let everyone know like where they can go.
Sure. So we ask your listeners to follow us, and they can go to bamfi.org. That's bamfi.org. And we have a number of information on our website. You can see people missing from around the country. And please take a moment to see who's missing from your state or your city. They could be missing from your community. We have a checklist there. In case your loved one goes missing, we have a number of resources available for families who are searching for their missing loved ones. And we also have our social media handles on our website. So we ask you to follow us and also to donate to the cause, because, you know, we don't take a salary from this organization. And every dollar that we receive, we give back to the community through flyer distribution, through vigils, even through burial services. Sadly, quite a few times when someone is missing, they're found deceased and the families don't have any money to bury them. And we step in and provide that financial support to them.
We've also been instrumental in the reunification process too, to get that missing loved one from one state back home to their family.
Mm-hmm. So we have assisted in bringing home or closure to over 300 people. But if we had more resources, think about we could have brought home more people. So that's why we need our community to get involved, because we can't do this by ourselves. We need our community to rally behind us and to help us find us.
Yes.
Thank you guys for coming and joining us. And I hope everybody who was listening got a chance to listen to you guys when we have our other interview with DC Now events. So we're going to do that IG takeover, and we're going to talk about that as well. So thank you guys once again for coming out and sharing your resources with us, and, you know, really elevating that conversation back into our community. And I know Anna and I would definitely be in contact with you guys about how we can actually put, you know, money behind you guys, as well as, you know, donating our time and our resources as well.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
For using your platform.
Thank you.